That one Tyson guy once said that everybody who makes plans gets punched in the face. And we kind of had a plan and felt like we got punched in the face. Is that how that goes, actually?
No, I think everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face.
And it was Mike, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just did it for fun.
We had a plan.
We did.
And then, to your point, we got punched in the face.
Yeah. So, hey, everybody. We're back now, actually not out in the field. We are back at Vortex, but we did go out and actually do something. We actually hunted. In fact, we even got some stuff while we were out there. And for that stuff, you should definitely go back and check out the video footage on our YouTube channel that we're going to post, somewhat of a vlog fashion of the adventure overall. We are joined here by Nate as well for his first ever podcast, not only because Nate was responsible for putting together and will be editing the footage that we got out there, but because he just wound up getting thrown into the mix and becoming an integral part to our survival, essentially, out there.
If you have 4 paddles, you need 4 guys to run them.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Oh, yeah. So, anyway, Nate, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Any primary words you'd like to address the Vortex Nation with before we...
Oh, this episode's going to rock. This is going to be so much. I'm so excited to edit this footage. There are so many little gold nuggets in there that it's going to be so much fun to chop together. So
For sure. For
sure.
sure.
A lot of entertainment value.
Lots of time, dedication, and sacrifice is going to be put in and was put in by Nate, so you should go and check out that video once it's all done here. But let's go ahead and discuss. Originally, like we said, the plan was to do a podcast, from a remote campsite off this river. It'd be pretty sweet. Anyway, I feel like we can't even talk a whole lot about what happened before addressing just why we are indeed now back at HQ.
A little early.
2 days early.
2 days early. Yeah. So let's just get that. Let's get the elephant out of the room. Our boat began to take on a sizable amount of water.
A lot of water.
Quite a bit of water. And we made it through about 24 hours, I would say, worth.
Yep.
We put the boat in sometime, around like 3 or 4, no, probably about 4 the first day. So I guess if you called that day 1, we made it down the river about 1.5 miles. And we found a remote campsite. This is the very high level synopsis for folks, but then we'll dive in. We found a remote campsite. Pitched camp there, woke up the next morning, did a little hunting, which we'll get into, and then we hopped back in the boat with actually a plan for that day. But then as we made it down, we sort of began to notice the issue of water getting into the boat. Anyway, so a lot of really...
Our plans started to be deflated.
Exactly. A lot of really fun, really interesting, cool things happened along the way. But we ended up deciding at one point, once we got to a boat landing, where essentially the next point where we may be able to get vehicle access to us was about 10 miles down the river. We determined that we should not go on any longer for actually just fear of it could have gotten pretty dangerous for us. But anyway, like I said, we'll get there. But that's why we're here. But I would still say, overall, this was one of the most... We set out to find adventure in our backyard. This was one of the most entertaining, adventurous things I have done in a very long time. And I know I had a blast. And we ended up making it back on the weekend with still like a whole Sunday. So we packed a lot in. We went full send there for just about that 24 hours.
It was one interesting part to me was the fact that, on Saturday evening, it actually felt like we'd been gone for a long time. But like you said, it was really only between the 2 days a total of about 24 hours.
Yeah. I know when we actually pulled the boat out and we met our friends, our northern friends with which we might talk about. I felt like we had come back from like some just gigantic excursion, some Lewis and Clark-esque like kind of deal, but no, we were just about 24 hours.
Yep.
But let's get into the nitty-gritty of this, the idea of this river hunt. Obviously, many different rivers are very different in their width, their skinniness. Mark is still using that term. Why don't you just say depth?
Depth,
it wasn't very
fine.
deep. Some rivers are deep, some rivers are not. Some rivers have, whitewater rapids, some have waterfalls, some have, all kinds of crazy different things can happen.
Sand
with
bottom,
rivers.
rock bottom, boulder bottom.
We had a very rocky river from the get-go when we figured out our situation with a car at the takeout spot, a car at the put-in spot. Once we figured all that out, we loaded up our boat. We realized that what we anticipated to be a shallow river with a lot of rocks. What did you guys think? What was when you saw reality versus expectation? We did Onyx scouting.
Yep.
You could see in the maps, you could see some spots on the river where you saw kind of just like it looked, little
like
white.
braille.
Yeah, little white areas, and then there was darker, just blue areas of the river. Those were where you knew it was deeper, but then those other areas you could tell that there were some rocks. What did you guys think it was like versus your scouting versus reality?
So I'm not going to say that I had a crystal ball, but Eric and I were chatting a little bit about this earlier. It's like he asked that exact same question. What were your thoughts when you saw the river? And I said to Eric, Eric, it met all my expectations.
Did it really?
Absolutely.
I
would be completely 100% honest if I didn't think that was the case.
Mm-hmm.
I guess when I looked at it on the mapping stuff, I anticipated the rocks that we did see. Some of them were pointing up out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them were sort of menacing, just inches below, if you could even say that, maybe even just an inch below the surface.
Yep.
And that was what I was expecting. I just wasn't expecting the sheer volume of rocks.
Yeah,
and let me the number. It was incredible. They were everywhere.
Let me backtrack a little bit too, because there were some things via aerial scouting that I didn't see. Like I fully like those the shallow riffles that we encountered.
Yes.
Like I could see those, and I'm like, oh yeah, those are going to be trouble spots. One thing that I wasn't aware of or didn't foresee, there was definitely stretches of the river that really had big rocks just barely below the surface.
Yes.
But you couldn't tell. That looked like deeper water from the aerials.
It did. And when we came up to those spots, actually, this is another thing that we discussed. Our choice in boat. I know we kind of poked fun at it a lot. We asked ourselves. In fact, I should have just asked at the beginning of this because I asked it in every single podcast. Did we pick the right boat? I don't think we were that far off. Mark's face says otherwise. Thoughts?
Well, okay. I feel the premise of an inflatable boat was correct. Maybe that's what you're getting at.
Yes. So that's what I'm saying. We weren't that far out because I know a lot of people before were kind of like, oh, no, I wouldn't do it in anything but a canoe or a kayak, that thing.
Kayaks, both of those, kayaks and canoes would have been no-goes.
We would have thrashed in a canoe.
Yeah.
Sketchy.
We
would have ended up, I would have been very glad I was wearing that helmet.
Yes. I think, a lot of people take on this river in canoes and kayaks, no doubt. And you're going to have some fun if you do. And we're not talking class 5 type stuff.
Right.
But
No.
there's a lot of exposed boulders. I think there's a lot of boulders that you would encounter or that the bottom of even your canoe would hit,
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
And I think there's some spots where you get turned sideways and, you could, if you're an experienced canoeer,
yeah,
I think you'd have a blast.
And I think also if you were a canoeer who was going out with very minimal gear, right?
Right,
Or a kayaker who was
exactly.
going with minimal gear. The other thing that you'll see in the video and some of our photos and stuff, and that and the reason I say that is because I actually have a hard time explaining it, is just the sheer amount of gear that we had. Because we had a ton.
A lot of gear.
So it was good in that regard that we had the boat that we did because that boat wasn't going to flip.
No.
There was no chance. And we had many, many times, we'd hit a rock, and we were all trying to paddle and steer in different ways, but it was inevitable at certain times. It was just, you're going to hit a rock. Sometimes we'd end up in pockets of rocks. That's where Mark found the time to go smallmouth bass fishing, even though we unfortunately didn't find any. But you just get hung up in a pocket of rocks. You'd have to backtrack. Everybody had to get out and into the boat. I can't count how many times. I think the first day especially, where we put in and it was really shallow, we were out of the boat pushing it along more than we were in the boat.
Yeah.
The boat just became a gear transporter, and we just pushed it along the river.
Yes.
Which is, it That was a reasonable form of transportation of gear back in the ancient Mesopotamian days. You know, they used.
A lot of people say that.
Yeah, I don't know that for a fact, but I just assume anything older than 1900 to me is Mesopotamia.
Okay. Isn't that the region between like the Tigris and
the
Euphrates? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I remember something.
Nice work. Where were we? So, but yeah, that's
We weren't between the Tigris and the Euphrates, I can tell you that.
Yep.
we did have to be wearing waders.
Yep.
Had we have not had waders, it would have been done. We wouldn't have even made it 10 feet. We literally put the boat in the water and we were like, and we're off. Boom. Okay. All right. Everybody out. We're hung up on a rock.
Yeah.
But that was, that was certainly back to kind of the boat choice. Our boat was a good gear hauler and it didn't flip on us.
Yes.
Because many times you'd hit a boat, you'd start getting sideways, you'd hit another rock, but thank goodness we didn't ever flip.
Right. And
So
I
we
think
weren't
the reason
affected
we
by
never
that.
flipped was because we had such a wide boat.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like if we would have had something narrower, we for sure would have flipped because there were so many times where we did get stopped and it went sideways, but the boat was just so wide that it couldn't be flipped.
Yeah.
right.
So
And ultimately, it seemed like our boat, just the design was not intended for rapids or rocks and things. There are whitewater rapid rafts that don't draft any water. They don't have an aluminum floor like ours did. Actually, if you look at the bottom of our boat, we can try and get pictures of it or something. All of the rips are along where the aluminum floor met the edge of the nylon or whatever material. That's where all the rips are. Because it just didn't have any flex
Zero
there.
flex,
No give when it would hit those rocks, and then it just ended up hitting them and tearing. So, gosh, there's so many things to talk about. I feel like I'm all over the place. What do we do? What do you want to? What do you guys want to discuss first? Because I know we learned a ton.
Should we take it just chronologically?
I think so. Chronologically, perhaps the first big thing we learned was just gear. Right?
Yeah.
We took a ton of gear, and I think part of that comes down to just clinical overpacking.
and trying to bite off too many things.
And
Yep.
if there was one theme to this story, I think it's that we tried to bite off far
Yep.
more than we could chew.
Yep.
Because when you boil down the gear that we had, did we take too much for what we wanted to do? Yes. But we also were trying to hunt whitetail deer with bows. We were trying to shoot waterfowl with shotguns. We were trying to fish for smallmouth bass with fishing poles that we needed tackle for. We were in a boat that had a 25-horse Yamaha on it, so we had to have gas and oil and a
Duck
spare gas can.
decoys.
Duck decoys.
Crawfish trap.
Crawfish trap. We were trying
I'm still bringing that next time.
we were trying to go on an all-out slaying extravaganza. And what did you guys think about that? We all kind of came to a consensus at the end. What was it?
Well, the lesson learned, pick 1 to 2 things. Pick less things. It's going to be less gear, and it's going to allow you to focus versus being a little bit all over the map.
Yeah. I feel like somebody even told us that.
Kevin did.
He did?
Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
We didn't heed
Did we
his
listen?
warning.
No, we didn't listen.
Gotcha.
We ignored it.
Some things you got to learn yourself.
Yeah.
You got to learn them the hard way.
Yeah.
We were
you know?
seeing red.
Yep. Yeah.
There's just like, it's one of those things. Well, Jim, you know I have severe FOMO, right?
Right.
And like, what
yes.
if we had gotten there and maybe we decided just to hunt deer, right? And we're like, you know what? Forget the shotguns. We're just going to hunt deer. We're going to focus on deer. And then you're just being swarmed with waterfowl. But you're not seeing deer one. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or, it's just like super rocky and you're like, oh my gosh, there's crawfish everywhere. We'd be just eating like kings if we'd load a crawdad trap like up stuffed overnight,
Yeah.
So, like I said, I think we learned a lot. Yeah.
We did. The only deer we came close to getting was the one that somehow we magically didn't just pile drive with a Ford F-150 on the way back.
I'm still not sure how we didn't hit that deer.
I'm still not sure that we are imagining that we didn't hit the deer, and really everybody else around us sees a Ford F-150 with a gigantic, just deer-shaped dent in the front of it.
In my head, as that was happening, I was like, well, at least we're going to get some backstraps out of the deal. But then I didn't hear contact. It was bizarre. And then it continued to run away.
Truly incredible. Like,
I
you know that-
guarantee its hair actually touched the car.
Yes. Yes. Note to everybody, usually when you see one deer sprint across the road, be ready for a second.
Yeah.
I was too distracted by the sheer size of the first deer that
Yeah.
ran across the road, and I forgot that there would be a second.
There
and sure
was.
enough, there was. Anyway, but yeah, it would have been really tough to hunt deer there, I think, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was another thing that was deceiving. I feel from the aerials, like it looked so simple, I guess, for lack of a better
Yeah.
word. And maybe we really didn't get to see.
I was
it
gonna
either.
say we never even made it to any of the pins that I had like dropped
Right.
on my phone
For deer
hunting. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to give like people perspective, we had antlerless tags in a county that was just south. Like we launched right on a county line, and our antlerless tags were for a different county. So like all of the scouting I think that everyone did was like further south.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And then without being able to see it, it's hard to evaluate. But from the stuff that we did see, like it would have been tough to hunt.
It was thick.
It's just
it was thick.
really thick.
Yeah, just like jungle thick.
When I got a ride back to town from that one dude to get our truck and trailer, and I did make it. Everything's fine. I'm all right.
Yep.
I asked him. 'Cause
Not
he said that-
emotionally.
He said that he had like 100 or some odd acres up there with his brother, and he said that when they hunted it, they basically just hunt really small areas, and you just try
Yeah.
and find a deer trail,
Yep.
and then just set up on it and hope for the best.
Yeah.
Because it is, yeah, like you said, it's the kind of thickness. It reminds me of video game woods thickness, where they just make the edge of a map when you're in a video game just the woods, and you walk up to it and you just like
Can't even
go, you like
penetrate.
can't go
Yep.
into it, you know,
Yep.
because you'd walk up to those woods and it was, I have no idea how I'd just get in there.
Yeah.
They're just so thick.
The
Yep.
one thing, like I said, we never got to the areas where we intended to go. That actually did look pretty darn good.
Yeah.
So we didn't really get to explore too far off the shoreline, and I do wonder, I guess because of, the nature of the river, we could see some areas that, look like they experienced temporary flooding at times, just to
Right.
like the nature of the dead trees and things like that. And I do wonder though, like if once you kind of like got through that initial barrier and got into like the normal or I guess whatever is like beyond kind of like that river plain, if you will,
Yep.
if it would start to be like less dense
Mhm.
foliage.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Could be. It's possible. But even as you're driving around on the roads up there,
She's pretty thick. I
it
mean,
is.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you I picture like the Canadian bush. It's
Yeah.
kind of like, I mean, and you're not too far from it, right?
Right.
Yeah. The one thing, though, too, you got to think about as well is I think the hunting public guys were getting at this, is that if you're going in a river, not many people are doing that. And we heard on the second day, you could call it, we heard a lot of four-wheelers ripping around out
Mhm.
there in the woods and kind of surmising that that's probably what a lot of people up there are doing. They're hitting the four-wheeler trails and they're just buzzing around there.
Yep.
And so if I were wildlife, I'd get pushed to the river.
Yeah.
A lot of human beings, I shouldn't say a lot because we didn't see very many human beings, but the ones that did see us triple took at what we were doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was kind of like what are they doing
Mhm.
there? I have never seen that. Kind of got the old Martian look. But yeah, I'd venture to guess that's probably where a lot of it gets pushed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thing to think about too. If we do something like this again, it's like human nature. It's like when you're on the bank, you're casting as far out as you can get it, right? When you're in the
Right.
boat, you're casting to the bank. Like, I do wonder, maybe you don't actually have to get that
Yeah.
too far off.
Definitely a possibility.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm. The waterfowl hunting turned into be a pleasant surprise.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we were all pretty like, we at least had duck for breakfast on the first day, and the amount of birds in the area was pretty good.
Yeah.
We saw no shortage of them.
Yeah.
And we had a giant raft right in front of where we were hunting.
Yeah.
Right.
We'd have had a number of ducks coming right at us if it weren't for that dang bald eagle.
Yeah.
Friggin' flew them right off.
Yep.
But we did get one, like you said, that morning.
Yep.
Like you said, Mark, speaking chronologically, I guess the first day pretty much was just navigating a rock show.
Yeah.
just in the water. We didn't actually get to much hunting of any kind until day 2.
Because I think our hope was to get how many miles downstream?
We were trying to get at least 6 or 7 miles down, and we made it 1.5 miles, and it took us an hour and a half to make it that mile and a half. So
yes, and we quickly realized too. Nate was filming at first, as we were struggling through this, which is going to make for great footage. Thanks, Nate. But then all of a sudden, the camera wasn't out very often after the first mile or so, or maybe even 3/4 of a mile, and suddenly Nate was in the river with us in his waders. Nate, how'd that go?
It was just one of those things, too, where it was kind of for the best, because after a certain amount of time, it's like, well, I've got 45 minutes of us just slowly rotating in a circle down the river, like rock, and then only so much of that footage anybody's going to want to see. And so after that, it's like, hey, let's get to the campsite so we can get some new footage. But
that's true, yeah.
If you were able to drift it, I think that river moves at about 3 miles an hour. So when you think of it in that regard, you're like, oh yeah, 2 hours, you're going 6 miles. If you got 2.5 hours, like you're getting to where you need to go.
Yeah.
Which we had.
We had the means to check the river height too ahead of time. And if I recall, now I've heard that the river level at that river changes. Mm-hmm. It can change rather quickly. And 1 week prior to us leaving, or maybe even a little bit less, it set all the river levels set high.
Yeah, even the day prior.
That must be all relative.
Yeah.
Right.
Because the day prior, I checked and it was still high. They had the county southwest of us actually had a state of emergency from like massive storm damage because it rained that hard and they had like crazy high winds.
If only the county northeast of us.
Exactly.
It would all flow down.
Which I think that's important to think about. Just looking at the river, like looking at the river level while we were on it, like not even considering like what happened before, what happened after. I think actually for us and what we were doing, even though it didn't work out great, like that's as good as it gets.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think I think we hit it at a good time because we've happened to have a lot of rainfall.
Right.
Had we have gone up a couple weeks prior where we didn't have all that rain, I think we'd have been.
You might not have made it 2 feet.
I think we'd have been hiking down the river.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the river was essentially, it was full, but it wasn't over its banks.
Right.
It was like essentially kind of just below its natural banks, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you could see, like we were talking about earlier, you could see how high it can get at
definitely.
times.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when the actual hunting happened on day 2, like we said, we got a duck that morning. We just kind of went out from our campsite along the river and saw a woody that happened to come by right nearby. And
he came in. It was beautiful. It was like the river we should bring up. Maybe people care or don't care. It was beautiful that morning. Just this dense, low-hanging fog on the river, which I actually felt like would maybe play into our advantage a little bit as far as keeping birds, low to the deck. And kind of concentrated.
Not seeing our large gray whale of a boat.
Yes, not seeing, exactly.
Yeah.
And so we'd been sitting out there for quite a while, missed a couple flights of birds that came by, and Jim, you and Eric had left to find a snack.
We went to go get Pop-Tarts.
I was actually, I was jealous of the fact that you guys were getting Pop-Tarts. That's how they say them in Europe, Pop-Tarts. But I wasn't going to leave my post. And Nate was with me. And I look up, and, like, out of the fog, like, it was almost surreal. I'm like, oh, my gosh, there's a duck right there. Now, he's on the water, and he's swimming towards us.
Yeah.
Getting closer. And he was just going to get to a point. At this point, I knew he was in range. He was just getting to a point where he was kind of going to be obscured by some overhanging brush. I pulled my gun up. I would say he began to take flight. His feet maybe were still touching the water, but we were hungry and times were tough, and we were able to knock him down.
Oh, yeah. We woke up that morning all frozen.
Yes.
And hungry and cranky because everybody forgot pillows.
And spoons.
Shoot, we didn't even get into all that.
I was gonna say,
we will get into.
We'll
the-
backtrack.
Yeah,
we'll
we're gonna
backtrack.
have
We'll
to.
backtrack. But yes, it did happen, and then we cooked that thing up right there.
which was delicious.
It was
Yeah, it
delicious.
was unbelievable.
I mean, as simple as you can do it. We started up the jet boil. We did use our little, I guess, our little mini foldable camp grill that you could put over an open fire as well. We placed it over the jet boil with our cast iron skillet.
Melted it a little bit.
Yeah, we melted the steel a little bit. That she gets pretty hot. We had some Montana Mex seasoning. We used the green
And the avocado oil.
and the avocado oil, and literally just pan fried the legs and breasts.
One of the
and
most incredible flavors.
It was
I've
phenomenal.
ever-
So simple, so succulent. Like Eric said, man, we need 30 more of these. And
Nate,
I
first
agree.
wild duck. Thoughts?
It was fantastic. That whole morning, I think, was probably the high point
Yeah.
for me. Like, it's honestly that little vignette we have of like waking up, duck hunting, getting a duck, defeathering and chopping up the duck, and then cooking the duck. Like that whole scene was just very picturesque. Like,
Yeah.
It was.
yeah.
It really was like a little mini A to Z right there.
Yeah.
It was. It was pretty sweet. And yeah, with the fog and everything, I mean, it was something straight out of like a movie, the way that everything looked. But duck was delicious. Surprisingly tastes better than steak, but in the same like flavor vein as steak. You know what I mean? As a
Yep.
beef steak,
Yep.
which still baffles me. It's something I don't even remember if we talked about in Waterfowl 101. But when you cook up waterfowl, duck in this case, one, you're not going for full-on cook like you do with chicken.
No.
I always thought that all birds were just like chicken, you know.
Right.
Right.
But then you shoot a duck and you start breasting it out and stuff and getting the legs and you see that it's red meat
Mm-hmm.
and then you cook it up and it tastes better than steak but similar. Super weird. And
Yeah.
you're cooking it to a rare, medium rare.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we probably had it at a medium rare. And different ducks are going to taste different. You know, I mean, a merganser is going to taste different than a wood duck.
Right.
Okay, so is that how
I'd
that
say a
works?
wood duck is probably pretty high on the scale
Yeah,
of
definitely.
ducks that taste really, really good.
Okay. All right.
I don't know. I mean, I'd probably put somewhat, and there's people with a lot more ducking experience than myself, but I'd say, like, I don't know, wood ducks, mallards, widgeon, and teal are probably, like, I guess those are my favorite ones to eat.
I always feel like they're separated from like fish eaters to non-fish eaters.
Maybe that's a better way to put it,
And
a more simple way to
if
put
they
it.
eat fish, they're not ideal. They're still good. Obviously, still, there's ways to cook them right, but I feel like the non-fish eaters are way easier to make taste good.
Yeah.
So
Which ones don't eat fish?
the ones that he just mentioned.
The ones you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Noted. All right.
But and I think I even said in the video too, like you're talking about tasting like a steak. Like to me, the denseness, the texture, kind of like I'd say like the non-fat content.
Yeah.
Like I mean, it's almost identical to a New York.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Like if I was going to
definitely.
pick like a steak to compare it to.
I would say I'd say that's accurate.
Now initially we did cook it to I'd say
rare.
very rare.
Yeah.
Which like if I wish
Like
we would
blue.
have showed it because like it was
blue.
blue. Like it looked like if you've ever seen seared ahi.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh yeah, it
Ahi
did look
tuna.
just like that ahi duck. Yeah.
Which I'll say this too, we probably could have ate it and been
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
But I just thought it might be
No
prudent.
bathrooms.
Right. We're
Right.
kind of out in the middle of nowhere.
we did have Cliff Bars to plug us up.
Yes. Yes.
Let's
Yep.
play it safe and just give her
Which-
a little more.
They worked.
They did
End
work.
of story.
Still working.
Yeah.
Confirm. I started when I opened my Cliff Bar. I started just dipping it in the oil left over from the duck.
That was an interesting move.
Yeah.
It tasted
I didn't
good.
try that.
I needed calories after jumping out of the boat and jumping in the boat 1,200 times
Yeah.
the day before, and knowing that I was about to do it 1,200 more
Yep,
times that
yep.
day. Okay, we've gotten so excited talking about the hunting. We should mention some gear things.
Yes.
We overpacked and even still forgot some stuff. We were jettisoning things into the van before we actually even
Yep.
set way. We didn't have to let anything go in the river, thank goodness. But the Yeti 125 didn't make it with us.
Not even
It
close.
was a press fit into the boat already, and we had a mountain of gear in the center of the boat. And so that just was not going to make it. But there went all of our ice.
Mm-hmm.
So we had no ice.
Right.
That's why we had to eat everything that we shot pretty much immediately. Or that was the plan.
That was the plan, to eat as much, like if we killed things,
feast.
to eat them. Like, I mean, had we not had to, literally abandon ship, like those or the geese that. Did we get to the geese?
Oh, we'll get to it.
Spoiler
We'll get to
alert.
the geese,
The geese that Eric shot, like those, we're gonna feast that night on those guys.
Yeah.
And if we did get to the deer hunting part and
We
were
had game
successful,
bags.
we had game bags. It was
Yeah.
cool enough. You would have been able to hang them and care for them for a couple days. You'd have been
Right.
absolutely fine. In fact, those geese I think would have been fine for a few days as well,
Totally.
as long
It's,
as we took care of them.
What was that
Yep.
one time? Muckenhern was in South Dakota, I think, and he had a deer that he shot first day of an 8-day trip, and he just hung it in game bags in a shady spot. It got down. It sounded like identical
Right.
climate to what we had, where it could get up to 70 degrees during the day, but if you're in the shade and then it gets down to 40 at night, he said that kept it
Right.
the whole time. So anyway, that's what we did have. But anyway, so we didn't have a cooler with ice in it. That didn't make it. We also jettisoned some of our bagel sandwiches. Brittany, not all the bagel sandwiches made it. Sorry.
This is I do because
That's
this,
all Mark's fault. Brittany's over here taking notes too on the episode, and she's glad to see that we made it back alive, but also pretty
what I do
upset with us that
find.
we jettisoned her sandwiches.
Yes, well, I would be too. What I do find interesting is as we're loading the boat, we're finishing loading the boat, and we've got pretty much. We had everything in some ways except the bare essentials in some areas.
Yep.
Very much so.
As well as the people, I found it interesting. What people were willing to give up was the food and water.
Food and water. Yeah, we gave up some water.
Yep.
But man, there was so
Agree to disagree.
No,
I
I mean,
guess.
it was definitely like, yeah, we don't need the food, we don't need the water. Like, but bring
as many-
bring the crawfish trap. Bring an extra box of shells.
yep.
Somehow we didn't end up with any bug spray.
Yeah.
Either.
Oh, that was
That
another
was-
thing we jettisoned.
I think the biggest failure was there wasn't even a little bottle. Like there was absolutely zero bug spray.
we just dropped Eric's shotgun.
It's
and,
okay. It's in a
couple
better place.
overs
Which
off the table.
I'll take some responsibility for that. Nate's like,
Mark,
hey, should we bring this bug spray? I'm like, oh no, dude, they'll be fine.
maybe
Dude.
the
Yeah.
size of my palm.
Yeah. Yo, don't
Like
bring.
8 ounces.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could fit that in your pocket. Heavens
And the
no, don't
bugs
bring
were
it.
so bad.
They were atrocious.
We had a frost like 4 weeks ago
Yeah.
up there.
and we
I
had a
figured they were
frost the
gone.
night we were sleeping there,
Right.
and they still came out.
They're
in full
covered
force.
in fat. They're they're ready for winter.
Them some
I-
up north mosquitoes.
Yeah.
Ate
They
the
don't.
back straps off one.
Yeah.
They need at least 7 or 8
Yeah.
frosts before they're dead.
They fly in smoking grape cigarillos. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah.
And the
They're
thermosol
ripping
worked.
swishers, keeping warm.
The thermosol worked great until we gave
Until
it a
it was
bath.
flooded.
Yeah, a bathtub.
How about some of the items of gear that we didn't bring? Let's consider the fact that I think Eric was the only person who brought a pillow.
Yep.
I still say that's optional.
yeah, I was fine.
Yeah.
I woke up with a terrible kink in my neck, but I just played off like it wasn't there. And then Mark was the only person who brought a spork. Everybody
Yeah.
else forgot any kind of silverware.
Okay,
And so we
and-
had to fashion. Mark actually came up with this. Mark, this is the most handy thing I've ever seen you do in my entire life.
Yeah.
You came up
I'm
with
an adapter, Jim.
sticks,
Yep.
with sticks that he duct taped around in a big curved square. So we had duct tape and stick spoons.
Which we had 2 of. There were 3
Oh, yeah.
people that needed spoons.
Yeah, we only made 2 of them, and so Eric and Nate,
Nate
had to
take
share a spoon.
spoon.
Yeah, Nate, can you explain what that was like sharing Eric's spoon? And
Yeah,
also
I got
explain
Eric sloppy seconds.
Eric sloppy seconds, and also the fact
there.
that Eric was just disgusting with the flu about like
Very
man.
sick.
3
Nate,
days
why
prior.
didn't you just say?
Why didn't you use mine?
As with many things in life, I get distracted, so I was doing one thing, and then probably something happened, so I quit doing that, and then started doing something else. If you would just said, "Hey, Mark, can you get me a stick and some of that tape?" We probably could have sorted that
Could have
out.
fashioned you a second.
You're lucky you're not dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I drank creek water too. Nothing can kill me.
Oh my
that was
gosh,
pretty
that's
baller
right.
move.
Nate, yeah,
Yep.
we had at that point plenty of water, and you just went straight for the. Not even like there was some nice parts of the river where the water's rushing over rocks and it's moving nicely. You know,
Had a
I'm
little bit
sure-
of a tannin color, but still clear. I think that's
Yeah,
just due to the
yeah.
the
Rust color of the river.
yeah,
You know?
just natural. No. Instead, Nate goes where we get off into some stagnant portion of the river. Next
There's
to our
like grass
campsite.
all the way up to the top.
Grass all
of
the
the
way
water.
up to the top. And as we're walking in, everybody's sinking down up to their mid shin in just crap as we get up to the bank of the river and onto the campsite.
Extremely soft, muddy bottom.
That's where Nate grabs his water from. And then he goes, "Oh, I got these tablets. They're great." Yeah, throws those in. Just, yep.
Hey, they're made in Wisconsin, right here, in state. So
I'll
They
say
must
this.
know.
quality
They
craftsmanship.
must know their stuff.
When I'm drinking water, Nate, I generally don't like to get my liquids and my solids at the same time. And I know
You never
you were
had a
getting
protein
both.
shake? Come on.
Winner.
Yeah, I guess.
What Nate was drinking
My-
was a natural protein shake.
Yeah.
Yeah, made with real mud.
Yes.
Yep.
Made with real mud, parasites,
floaties.
protozoa, and floaties. Yeah.
So, yeah. What else did we forget / bring that wasn't necessary?
I think I wore.
Oh my gosh, I
I think I wore 3 or 4 articles of maybe the 12 pieces of clothing that I brought.
That
Same.
always
I didn't
happens.
Yeah.
change at all,
Yeah.
and I don't think I ever would have needed to.
Yep.
But I still brought way too many clothes.
Unless I somehow got super wet, I would have had the same like base layer to outer
Outer.
layer,
T.
just up and down throughout the day,
Yeah.
depending on temperatures.
Yeah,
Did I change my socks and underwear first day? It was fantastic.
you were
I just
also
don't
rolling with
care.
like regular underwear and socks too, right? Like you didn't. Were they merino?
They were merino. No,
Oh.
they were regular socks and then regular kind of like all-purpose weatherproof material for them. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, and then
Okay.
regular underwear.
Because I was rocking merino, and yeah, that stuff you can get pretty feral.
Yeah.
Before that stuff needs to be
Yep.
changed.
Yep.
Dude, my entire roll top dry bag though also just got demolished when
Yours
I
must-
got home. I pulled out the puffy warm stuff. It was like wet noodles.
Yours
it was just
must have been the
sopped.
dry
Your
bag,
dry bag
on the
didn't-
bottom.
My roll top dry bag.
It didn't stay waterproof.
It was soaked through and
That's
through.
crazy.
Like there was
So-
so much water in all of my clothing too. Like it's
Like, that
in the
would've been a
dryer
game
still.
changer.
Yours must have been the one on the bottom.
Yeah, it must have been pretty.
Because
far
I
down
looked
there.
at that one at one point, and I remember thinking to myself, because the
Yeah.
boat, the water in the boat was up to our ankles, and that bag was laying down kind of the flat way, and it was almost fully submerged. And I just thought to myself, like, I think water's going to creep through that roll. Because you had like enough stuff in there that like you couldn't roll it and roll it and roll it and roll it.
Oh,
It was
okay.
like 3 rolls or 4
Yeah,
rolls
it was
before
just a
it was
couple.
buckled, so it was not many. Yeah,
Gosh, I'm
It was a
surprised
full
that wasn't
bag.
enough. Though.
And
Yeah.
it was yeah.
But it got the royal soaking, and it's like
That's a good takeaway,
That
though.
is. That really is.
did. Yeah.
Those like airtight bags though
The
were
rugged-
big stones.
Yeah. Yeah. The rugged like
those
big stone
rocks.
bags were.
Those are incredible.
Yep.
Yeah, and we had all of our bows in them.
Yeah.
We had a lot of our camera gear.
Those worked
was in
good.
'em. The camera gear was literally sitting in a pool,
yeah.
and it didn't
Yeah.
get wet.
So those things, and I had them double bagged just in case. Wouldn't have needed those
Yeah.
Ziplocs. I'm
Yep.
totally
Yeah.
sold on those bags. Those bags rocked.
Huge
Yeah.
shout out
So-
to
Easy-
those guys because
yeah.
we contacted them and said, "Hey, is your stuff capable of handling this?" And I don't know, I remember what the conversation was, but they ended up wanting to be a part of this adventure. So huge
Yeah.
shout out to those guys. It's RUGID Rugged. They make some good stuff.
Well, and then compared to a standard roll top, too, like way easier access.
Yeah,
to your gear,
definitely.
too.
Just
Like,
zip it open. It's like a duffel bag
Yeah,
Like-
made on steroids.
if you've got something at the bottom of your roll top,
they float.
You're going to
too,
the
right?
bottom.
yeah.
Don't they float?
They do, yeah.
Yeah,
Everything
they make them for
floats.
AR-15s. They make them for bows. They
Yep.
make them for just regular duffel bags. We
They had a
big
little
one.
valve on the side too, which was nice because if you kind of had it filled with air and you zipped it up and you were to press it, like
Yeah.
it held the air in there too, so they were practically airtight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the valve was
pretty
kind of
cool.
nice, where it's like, yeah, you fill it up with air so it floats, or if you really want to like
Pack
batten
way
it down,
yeah.
you can kind of put everything you need in and almost like vacuum seal the
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
a little bit.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah, this valve like you see on your Instant Pot or something.
Right, yep.
Yeah.
So those were pretty excellent item. What else did we bring that was just I'm trying to there was one that I thought of while we were just talking of just something that was just in gross excess, but I don't recall what it was.
We had
Anyway,
a ton of headlamps.
We had 7 headlamps, I think, and a gigantic flashlight that was
Yes.
courtesy of me that I thought we would need if we ended up boating in
Yep.
pitch black.
I tell you what, though. Okay, let's say we missed Camp 1, right? We
You
don't
hit
see
a
that
deer or
spot.
something weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that was still a good thing to
I
have.
do too. Yep.
And
The
then,
torch.
Yep.
you know, I'm also a firm believer in 2 headlamps per person, so I
Yeah.
don't find that. I mean, okay, let's say you're in the woods and like your headlamp goes out. Maybe you even do have extra batteries, right? So you're like, oh, but if it's dark out, what are you going to need to put your extra batteries in your original headlamp, or find your extra batteries? It's nice
light.
to have an extra light.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Here's one thing that I'm going to do next time. Mark, you went out very graciously to Costco and bought all of our snacks.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm going to just sound like a total pink in the air, picky little prissy princess here, but like I only in each bag got to like 25% of the snacks. They're the snacks you like on your hunting trips, but I hate almost all of them. So
We went over the list prior to
I know
the trip.
I wasn't
here's
there.
what I'm thinking.
I don't remember.
Anybody have additions or subtractions?
I don't remember.
Mark, I like
Anyway.
the snack bags.
I didn't like
Thank
the
you.
snacks.
I did too.
But then we had a lot of just excess stuff
Yeah.
because I wasn't eating any of my snacks. All I was eating were the Cliff Bars and
Well, it's because we were too busy
You know, like the-
pushing the boat.
We also weren't even
Pop-Tart.
out there long enough to eat.
What about the mango
food.
jerky? The mango and the regular jerky.
I just didn't get into it. I didn't get into it. But
Let's go over the food list for the day.
Apples.
We had 100 sandwiches. Like
100 sandwiches.
yes,
We had
We did not
one
have
sandwich
100.
per
We had-
person per day.
yes,
there were so many.
There were
sandwiches.
16
There were
sandwiches.
16
So
sandwiches.
many.
I was a little skeptical on the
anybody eat one?
sandwiches until I tried
I
one.
didn't.
I ate one.
Okay.
Phenomenal. You could have only packed those and I would have been fine.
Okay.
I think what it was is that like we packed so much food. I don't think a human being needs that much food to function.
Definitely not.
There were Pop-Tarts, Twix bars, Snicker bars, there was nuts, there was
Like
Cliff bars,
Heather's
there was
Choice.
beef jerky, there was a lot of there was enough dried food,
Yes.
Heather's Choice or Mountain House for one dinner per person per night. There was beef jerky, there was mango jerky, there was everything. There was so much food, and I remember looking at that to myself and thinking, like, if I'm gonna go on a river and be in this remote kind of hunt and camping and stuff, I don't think that the goal should be for me to actually feel full as I'm.
We
going
literally
around.
probably had 50 to 70 pounds of food.
It was
That's
a ton.
probably not an exaggeration.
And Mark, I don't mean to come at you with this attack right now over your food choices, but you are kind of known for overpacking,
Yeah.
and I just think that may have been all I needed were a Cliff Bar a day, my sardines, which are in a packet, which that's just a whole other conversation.
How many of those did you eat, Jim?
I didn't get to because I didn't know where they were. They were buried under
Interesting.
all the
So
other
you didn't even
food.
get
They
to
were
the own food you brought.
Yeah, they were buried underneath all the other food. All I needed was a Cliff Bar, a pack of sardines, and
Freeze-dried meal.
a Mountain House.
See, I almost
And
feel
that would
like
have been good
those-
for me.
Those Heather's Choice or whatever they were.
Delicious.
Like if I were to have done it differently, I would have just taken those 4 bags of snacks and I would have left all the Heather's Choice at home and I would have left all the sandwiches at home and I would have just said like, here's my snack bag. And if I want anything else, it's whatever we're gonna
you
shoot.
did get a
and eat.
weird dark chocolate chili one.
Yeah,
I
that's
think yours
true.
But
would have
even-
had my
Espresso.
chili mac and beef.
Even
might
then
have
though,
felt
but
differently.
you're putting together, you're spending all this time. You put the heater down, you heat the water up, you pour it in, and then you have all this trash afterwards.
yeah, and then you're burning
what I
your
liked
hands
about
as
this,
you're holding the thing.
yeah, it's a lot of stuff. We didn't have spoons, so now we're fashioning spoons out of duct tape and twigs, right? But at the end of the day, like with all the snacks and stuff like that, it's like, oh, cool. Here's a bag already taken care of. All the food is in its other little compartments. So if I take one thing out, I'm not ruining the whole bag. And then all the trash that I had just went in one pocket. I just kept putting it all in there. I had a trash pocket. And so I didn't even have to like deal with it. I just ate it, put it in the pocket, kept going. And I could divvy it up kind of like over the course of the day when I was hungry.
Right.
So I really liked that those snack bags existed. And I mean, after with the duck, he added the duck to the Pop-Tart in the morning, and that was perfect. It was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I had a duck, a Pop-Tart, and a bag of cashews, and it was like, boom.
No, I'm going to keep defending myself here, Jim. There's a method to that madness, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you get some crazy long days, like let's say you do get a deer, and heck, maybe you're tracking it all night.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're tracking in the morning. Maybe you're going back the next morning. Like, I view the dehydrated meal at the end of the day as like a treat if there's time.
Okay, yeah.
So, like, in my daily ration of food, I want to know that I can for sure make it through the day and maybe make it through a period of like high exertion where you're burning a lot of calories.
Yeah.
Without having that warm meal, that quotation mark warm meal at the end of the day.
That's fair. I guess I don't know. Maybe I just operate on less calories than you do because you wolf food on hunts.
So now I'm fat.
No, you're not. Everybody can see you if you watch on YouTube right now. Look at Mark. He's not fat. He looks very nice. Very trim fella.
High metabolism.
High metabolism. But
Constantly
you
metabolizing.
wolf food. Maybe, you know what it could be, is that during the day when Mark's at work, he only eats yogurt.
Yogurt. Lots
So when
of
he
yogurt.
goes on hunts,
Yep.
that's his chance to eat more
Very
food.
true. Very true.
All right, let's next
We had-
topic.
yeah. What
Next-
else? What else was there that like is worth mentioning? I mean,
I don't know. When it comes down to gear, I mean, we can probably move on from that in some regards. But I tell you what, the waders were huge, though.
oh yeah,
Could not
Yep.
have done anything without waders. Without those, the whole thing would have been donezo.
Yeah,
You'd have been wet.
Yes.
very wet.
Move on. Let's move on to day 2 now. Like, kind of get into that because after we shot this duck we've described, then we set off. We had to load up the boat again, which was just a colossal effort, and it was
Pulling up the map
like
quick.
playing Tetris with dry bags and all kinds of other random stuff. Then we set off. We go down. We wound up hitting a lot more rapids and things. We did have some more deeper portions where the motor was able to go in for brief periods of time, and a couple times it hit some rocks. We'll just
Yep.
brush by that like it didn't happen.
Every time we put it in the water, it eventually hit rocks, Jim.
But yeah, as we
Hashtag need a new prop.
as we motored along, though, we got hung up on many more rocks. Had to be jumping out. One thing that we didn't discuss with DJ that I think probably anybody who has done this kind of thing before would be cognizant of this, but this is kind of a safety thing, like potential bad hazard. So we had to get out a lot to push this boat. And most of the time, we're getting out in rapids. So the river is rushing by you. And most of the rocks are very slick and slippery. Most of the rocks, like you'll have a section where you get out of the boat and you're almost, the water level is basically not even as high as your ankles. But then as soon as you step off a rock, you think the top of the rock is the bottom of the river. And then you step off the rock and all of a sudden you're in water waist deep.
Right.
Boom, just like that. And many, many times that happened. We're trying to push this gigantic boat along, and you have 2 people on one side, 2 people on the other side. We're pushing it along. The boat has a lot of weight and mass to it. The river has a lot of force to it. Erik and I were discussing this, just how strong water is, and just when you think about hydraulics and currents and all that stuff. Water is strong, and if you have a big floating thing on top of it, the big floating thing is being dictated to by the water, and then you have 2 other people on the other side. So there are times where
Well, and depending on which way the boat is hung up, you have to push it one way or the other,
Yep.
which is generally towards the other
somebody.
people.
Exactly. So
And
you're hung up.
downstream.
You're hung up
Yep.
on a rock, and the front of the boat is stuck on a rock. So the 2 people on the left side of the boat, whatever, port, starboard, who cares? The 2 people on the left side of the boat are over there, and they're saying, well, we can't go to this. We can't go this way because if we go that way, there's another rock. So we got to push it your way. And so you're kind of thinking like it takes a while to register that, but they're already pushing. We figured out our communication skills a little bit better later on, where it was like, okay, I'm going to push now. But the first few times it was like, no, we need to go that way. And then the people would start pushing. And if you were on the receiving end, there's a large boat headed towards you. And a couple times I almost got sucked under the boat.
Yeah.
And I think
Right.
that happened to a few of us. It wasn't just
Oh,
me.
yeah. Yep.
But like you're going along and then all of a sudden you slip on a rock, or you're up really high and then you step off a rock into a hole and boom, you go down, and then the boat's coming at you and you're like trying to scurry out while also not getting water to rush in over your waders. And like that could be super dangerous, getting trapped underneath a boat in rushing water, because then the other people are trying to, they have to realize that it's happened, try and get the boat off you. The other thing was too, is being that there's all those holes, there were a couple times where I thought you broke your ankle at one point.
Yep.
Because the boat was being pushed. That's a lot of mass pulling you one way, and then your foot went down
Slipped
in a
into
hole,
that
and it
hole,
got
yep.
stuck in some rocks, and the boat kept going, and you were still holding on to it because I don't think you'd realize what happened yet.
Mm-hmm.
And it pulled you, and I remember hearing you yell, and I was like, broken ankle. Like,
Yeah.
we're going to have to splint that. We might have to use this kit, the DJ.
Yep.
Oh, that's
You know.
why you were getting so excited.
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, Eric, are you okay? Please don't be. No. No. But anyway, I did think.
We're going to have to
Yeah.
put him down. Oh,
And
wait,
you-
nope, he's okay. He's fine.
Yeah. Oh, shoot. Well, maybe it'll happen again. But anyway.
And I know you even said the same thing. There was one point you said that you got your ankle stuck in between.
Oh
some
yeah,
rocks.
I was because I was in the front of the boat,
Yep.
right, filming backwards at U3. So
Yeah.
every time, or most of the time, whenever we get stuck, I get out. All the boat's weight and three people's weight is
headed
ahead
at
of
you.
me, and I'm in the back. And so there was one time, and I think it was day 2 when we were going down that one particularly nasty section where we were.
It didn't end.
And
It just
it was
kept-
like there's 6 rocks, and we're like trying to. It's like kind of getting pinballed between these rocks
and
on the way
like
down.
200 yards long.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, and we're pulling this boat through, and there was one time I took us because I it was coming towards me or something. I took a step backwards, and there was like 3 rocks, and then this perfectly like foot shaped hole, and my foot just went shunk like
Yeah.
right in it, and I was like, whoa, that's jammed in there. Like I really like
the boat's coming at you.
and then then I look up, and then the boat is still coming, and I'm like holding my hands. I'm like, this thing's just gonna like slowly tear my foot right off as it goes by. I had resigned myself for probably about a good second. Where I'm like, there it goes.
Yeah.
There it goes.
Say-
I've never broken an ankle before. This
Yeah.
will be interesting.
Say goodnight. Well, luckily you were wearing those waders, so they would have, captured the foot, and we could have maybe saved it.
yeah. The other crazy thing, like it's easy to think like, oh, it's just chest high water. Worst case scenario, you just stand up.
Yeah.
Not really, because it's like a washing machine. Like you might not be able to orient like which way is up.
Yeah.
Even though it's super shallow water, and like the logical side, like it's easy to sit here from a distance and say, oh, if anything would happen, you can just stand up. Well, in that moment, your mind is not going to process stuff that fast.
Every time I got out, it took a minute. I'd hold on to the boat and wait until my feet touched the ground, and then I would determine like that was a solid place, not sandy.
Yeah.
And also like I'd do a little skid test to see how slippery it was. Because if you just jumped out, it was like you'd slip on a rock and you'd crack your head.
Yeah.
Which you morons weren't wearing a helmet. I was the only one with my rollerblade
true.
and helmet on.
I'd say the one smart thing, and you guys are right about that bottom. I mean, that bottom was, it was pretty. I mean, it was sketchy. Lots of places. I think we all got our foot hung up at least at one point in time where you had to dislodge it. But I'd say the one smart thing that we did do is if we were in the boat or out of the boat, like walking the boat, we all did have life jackets on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100% of the time.
which make for phenomenal grab handles.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, because there was at least, I could count it probably on, I'd have to use both hands to count the amount of times, but where it was like the river is going from 1 foot deep to 6 feet deep, so you're
Right.
going to be in over your waders,
Yeah.
and the boat is coming at you.
Yep.
It was like, get in the boat now, and we just, whoop,
Yeah.
you'd grab somebody and just
Yep.
pull them in.
You wouldn't have the
Yep.
leverage to jump back in. Like,
Right,
when
exactly.
it was 2 foot, 3 foot, you just pop right in. But
Yeah.
when you get deep like that, you
yeah.
got,
Without a life jacket, I mean, those waders are slippery. You're not grabbing onto a wader,
Did we even talk about like the whole optical illusion thing that like
I was waiting for somebody to bring that up with the rapids.
yeah,
that was
like
on
you
my
would
mind too.
I don't know if you guys felt this at all, but like
Explain.
if you're walking with the boat and kind of like maintaining with the water and not really feeling the bottom, you feel like you're just kind of stationary, but then all of a sudden your foot hits and like you're cruising, like you're going super fast.
Oh, yeah.
And then like even when we were walking across to try to go to the landing before we went to our like eventual takeout, we're walking across there and like I probably looked like a crazy person just like standing there, but it's like you're trying to process, like it's literally makes you feel like the the floor, which is the river, is moving underneath you.
Yeah.
So it's hard to even figure out like how to walk because it's like tricking you essentially.
I mean, really, I was just using the boat as support and almost like just kind of like walking by braille, like taking like almost like feeling the rocks as, you know, like, because all of a sudden you'd be in, you know, maybe 3 feet of water, and then all of a sudden you might be in 6 inches of water, you know, and you're just kind of like moving, almost keeping your legs loose.
Right,
just kind of go up and down as the bottom changes.
And it's easier when you're hanging onto the boat, but when you're doing it like that, when we walked across the river, like that's hard as heck. 'Cause you have nothing to hang on to, and you really don't know what is going on.
Oh, now I know what you're talking about. Yeah, when we crossed without the boat.
There's a couple times where it's like I walk out and I've got a camera in my hands too to go get a shot because I want to be away from the boat a little bit. And so it's kind of like that ad where it's like, don't fall in because you don't want the water to go down your waders, and you're holding on to $6,000 in your hands that is not waterproof.
Oh, yeah.
So Jimmy and I a couple times, we would do the fireman bucket thing where I'd give it to him. He'd stand there stationary with solid footing, and I'd like feel my way out just within hand's reach, past the camera, and then I'd stand stationary while he did the same thing, and we'd walk the camera.
I am handing you the camera. Are you receiving the camera? Yes, I am receiving the camera. I am letting go of the camera. Do you confirm? Yes, I confirm. Please let go.
No, that's really good communication, though. I mean, in any, you know, scenario, like those are good questions to ask.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh man, it was.
And also,
wild,
if you went downstream, it'd probably been a while before we'd get you because the boat was likely hung up.
It was wild, but I tell you what, when we hit the rapids just right and we all like steered just right, and you didn't get hung up on a rock, man, that was fun. Holy smokes, was that fun?
Speaking of communication, and I can see I've never done any like real whitewater rafting, and this I wouldn't say, like I said, we weren't in like, but that was a part that I did enjoy. Was the communication, and when it was going good and you'd hit like a shoot right and you'd actually make it through it.
It
felt awesome.
Yeah, you wouldn't hit anything. It's just whoosh. That was cool.
Yeah.
Everybody's, you know, you got to go to the left, you know, like start paddling and then
hard right, paddle hard, paddle. You know, like that was cool.
Yeah. A couple of times too when we hit with the big inflatable like sides, when we hit a rock and you just go tilt a whirl and just all of a sudden be going backwards down the rapid. That was pretty fun too. I'll admit. But okay, the hunting. Can we real quick explain what our plan was to go hunting on that second day? Because first thing that we were going to be looking for was some backwater sloughs. I heard that. I heard that phrase many times. Because the idea was we were on this larger river or big open river. Again, like we said, many sections of it aren't very deep, but it's just a big open river.
Pretty fast moving in general.
And you guys were saying, in general, most waterfowl, or I guess the ones that we were looking at, like ducks especially, like the smaller waterways, because they're not big, wide open. They're not out.
Still, like if they're on that river, they're, you know, combating the current. But if they're tucked away in those sloughs, there really isn't any current for them. They're not used to people bothering them. Probably have a little bit more food back there too, because it's a little shallower. So like there's more like growth growing like underneath, like weeds and stuff like that.
Acorn trees probably likely nearby. Or oaks.
So like the plan for that second day, especially after waking up that morning and seeing like that there were definitely ducks in the area. So the plan was to go about, I think, like 6 miles or something like that, or 6 to 8 miles, and we were gonna stop at one of those sloughs and like go, you know,
which there was a campground,
right across
fairly
the river.
close by.
And we were gonna essentially like walk in there and see if we could shoot some woodies, you know, and I think that would have been a good plan if we would have made it there, you know. But obviously.
And then at that spot, too, we determined it wouldn't be a bad place to be for the next morning because the temperature was going to drop that night. And we were going to get some rain. And we were thinking that the next morning might prove potentially good for deer hunting.
You could have hiked up there and found some places to try, hunt deer. Yeah, when you think about those waters, I mean, think if you're a duck trying to feed on that river, you know what I mean? Like
you're getting pushed
pushed all around, where you can just like loaf around, hang out, eat, chill, groom yourself, nap, eat more. Just live that duck life.
Do duck things.
You know, the one thing I got to say, like as I'm mentioning the fact that we were thinking of going from, you know, hunting ducks to then hunting deer the next morning, And then when I was thinking about the fact that even though we didn't catch anything, when we went to that first camp spot, I mean, you got your rod out and just started fishing a little bit off the bank. Like, that idea has a lot of romanticism to it. Or maybe, I don't know if that's the right term, but the idea of just kind of being in the middle of nowhere. We looked around, you wouldn't see any people, nobody else was around, like not much pressure. That was in that area of the state, you know, just when you go up north, Wisconsin, it's so vast and sort of just wild. And we actually even pointed out the fact that when you go in, like northern Wisconsin, in many cases, looks kind of like Alaska.
Yeah.
And a lot of people describe that as just wild. And so, but being out there and being able to kind of be like, oh, we can go shoot ducks. We could shoot geese if they came by. We could go fishing. We could hunt deer. We could shoot a squirrel, you know. It has that, like, that Paul Bunyan, that kind of, who's the guy with the coonskin cap, you know.
Oh, Daniel Boone.
Yeah, Daniel Boone kind of feel to it.
Paul Bunyan was a logger.
I mean, whatever. You don't think he hunted?
He's got blue ox, babe.
He
probably hunted. He wore a flannel.
Yeah. If Paul Bunyan didn't hunt, I give up.
Comment below if you know if Paul Bunyan hunts.
Yep.
Anybody friends of Paul? But it does kind of have this romantic kind of quality about it where
absolutely.
To think about, you know, let's say we went out and we were hunting for woodies, you're trying to shoot some woodies. Oh, it didn't work. We're gonna head back to the camp.
Yep.
The idea that the hunting still, or just the gathering food or whatever, still might not be over. Where
it like never
so and so
turned
is
off.
going to make a fire. So and so is going to be working on the you know whatchamacallit. I'm going to get my rod out and start casting a little bit. It never turns off. Yes, exactly. From the moment you wake up, literally, we woke up, walked out of the tent, had our shotguns on the bank of that river. Boom, we were hunting.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then all the way until it's pitch black out. It was almost pitch black out, and I pulled out my bow and had my judo points on it and was just shooting at, you know, like grass. You know, I'd be like, that leaf, you know, and just, you could kind of do whatever you want out there. You know what I mean? It was just sort of all the way until it got dark. Yep. And then you just hit the hay and wake up and do it again, all over again.
I mean, it's like, to our earlier point, do I think we tried to do too many things? Yeah. Was the boat loaded with a ton of gear? Probably too much gear, yeah. But also, had we had the 4 days to actually execute, the initial plan, if you're going to go hunt deer and your goal is to try and get a big buck or a buck, and you're just like, yep, that's what matters to me, getting a deer.
Not for you.
Don't bring the shotgun,
Yeah.
don't bring the fishing poles, don't bring that,
But I think, we were all okay, not getting a deer. Let's hunt deer.
The goal was hunting.
When you shot 2 geese, we stroll up in the boat, come around a corner, there's geese just kind of floating out there, hanging out.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you know, they were kind of like, oh my gosh, why is a battleship in my river? And then just, and they took off and flew right at us and boom, boom, stoked.
Yeah, exactly.
Same look in their eye as the people that we saw.
Yes.
Haven't seen anything like this before.
Yep. But that's the cool thing about it is you get the excitement in little things like that. You're not going out there like you said. You're not seeking a specific age class of an animal. You're out there for an experience.
Yeah.
And whatever that experience is, you really don't know because you don't know what's around the next bend of the river.
Right.
You know?
True.
So
I mean, it really was. We were seeking the adventure and the unknown as much as the game we were after.
Right.
I guarantee we could have gone to some waterfowl spot that any of us know, thrown out a bunch of decoys, had it dialed, killed more ducks and geese.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
But it didn't have the same
allure,
which would still be super fun if you want to do that tomorrow. By the way, I'm in.
Yeah.
But it's just different.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's also never gotten old to me too, as you're floating down a river or walking in the woods or wilderness or wherever, and you know you're listening and you hear a noise and somebody's like, "Oh, there's a squirrel." You know, you guys are really good at that. I'm not as good at that as you are, but I'm kind of picking up on it. But it'll be like, as you walk along, you kind of hear that like or whatever that wood ducks make, and then all of a sudden somebody's like, "Oh, get down, there's wood ducks." Or you hear something else off in the distance. It's like, I wonder what that was. Ordinarily, if you're walking around just kind of going to and from work or, you know, going to the grocery store, you hear birds, but you're kind of like, whatever, it's just background noise. But when you're out there, you're kind of like, you know, that was a squirrel or, Oh, look, that was a coyote. I think we
Yeah,
heard some
yeah.
howling. The first
Yep.
night. Maybe a wolf. Who knows?
Yeah.
But that's always been pretty. Or you're going along. You're like, oh, that looks like a deer trail back down to the river.
Yeah, your senses are way more heightened when
Yeah.
you're out there in a like situation like that than they are obviously in your mundane like work
absolutely.
week. And I think even more so than if like you're doing your same like, okay, this is how I always hunt. Like let's say you got your spot that you go to every time. Your senses aren't as heightened then as they would be if you're just constantly in this new area.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
So
I mean,
which is almost like at the end of the day, like that first day, we were in bed at 8:00 because I think we were all like mentally exhausted. You
Yeah.
know?
Mm-hmm.
I think also.
and also it's dark at 7:30.
Yeah. From what I've gathered, and I'm not a meditation expert, but meditating seems to be like pure focus on something. And when you're out there kind of all alone or just with a few other people all with the same purpose, and your heightened focus is on finding ducks. Every single bird that would fly out and you use a little Tweety bird or something like that, it was like, what's that?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you'd see a duck, it was like, duck, 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 duck. Or
Yep.
whatever
Well,
it
all
was.
of a sudden everything has more meaning.
Yeah,
It
you're
is,
just
yep.
hyper focused on something. I feel like it has some sort of meditative qualities.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
you just kind of, even though it is kind of mentally exhausting by the end of the day, like you said, it's
Yep.
also sort of, I don't know, it's just freeing. It's cool.
Yeah, yep,
a lot of
definitely.
fun.
I mean, every twig snap, every flash of movement,
Yeah.
every
That one
bird that
deer-
flies by, you hear a bird, whatever. Like every bend in the river, like everything holds more meaning and more promise than if
Right.
you're just like going through your daily life.
Yep.
We heard a deer do what at
Blow
us?
at us,
Blow at
yeah.
us?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
I don't even
first
know how
morning.
you guys knew that was a deer. I just heard like a noise. And then all of a sudden someone was like, you hear that deer blow at us?
Yeah.
I'm like, crazy. Like it
Yep.
just smelled us or something and then just,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm getting out.
definitely.
Pretty wild.
Yeah, it's super cool. Definitely a unique experience. Like you're not going to get that doing just your normal
No.
like kind of hunting.
And that
you
was
know?
the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Picked a weekend where literally everything was in season. I think that was part of the reason why we
Right.
literally brought the kitchen sink. But
Oh, we did.
you're not going to get that experience if you're focusing on one thing.
Yep.
So,
If we did this again, what kind of boat would you get?
Some sort of inflatable.
Yeah.
And I guess it'd either be, I'd say you do individual pack rafts or similar that maybe hold two people.
Yeah.
Like there's
Something
there's some
like
cool
doesn't
stuff
draft
from
water.
something that drafts very little water,
Mhm.
even if you do have it under like a fairly extreme load. Even though I'd bring a lot less gear next time, I think I would pare it down to like picking two things that I want to
Yeah.
do. Perhaps.
Yeah.
I don't think you
yeah.
bring the bows.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I don't know. There's some cool stuff from Pristine Ventures. Those guys have some rad inflatable boats.
Those are pretty cool. We were checking those
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
Alpaca Raft has some cool stuff too.
Yeah. Something that's designed to take on, one of those. What was it? The Pristine Ventures, you said? They made a raft that was like designed to take on barnacles and stuff like,
Yeah, they've got the PR49, which is I think about a 15-pound pack raft. But you can load that sucker down, and then I think they recently updated the bottom to be a little bit more durable, which is I definitely would go with that.
Yeah,
for
if
this
you're
trip.
taking on those kinds of things that they were talking about, some of the rocks we ran into. And plus, if you're just in a smaller, like, single craft or something like that, you may be able to turn a little bit better. We had a little bit, and probably because of our weight distribution and the amount of weight that we had, we had all of our gear in one lump in the middle of the boat, which I could tell made steering very difficult. And it also, that was like a, I don't know if pendulum is not the right word. That was the fulcrum from which all of our turning happened. So all of our turning was just spinning.
Yeah.
Instead of having an even weight distribution, which then kind of evens out
right.
how the boat is sunk into the water and everything, we had it all in one spot. So if you try to turn, all the turning happened around that because
Sure.
that didn't really want to move.
It was just difficult because they needed room for the people to
You need room
be
for
in the
people.
boat.
Yeah,
and
exactly. I don't know. I still had a heck of a lot of fun.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
it
definitely.
was an adventure.
Yep.
It is super cool.
Yeah, for sure. It's and to our credit, we started looking at like Alumacraft boats. we got at least close enough where we made it still 7 of the 25 miles. 21.25 total miles was our original. We
And a
made,
Lumicraft boat wouldn't have even made it 5
wouldn't have,
feet.
you
No,
wouldn't,
2
you wouldn't
feet.
even got to that first
I don't
bridge.
think it wouldn't have gotten.
Well, you
in
wouldn't
the,
have launched it.
It wouldn't have
Yeah.
gotten in the water.
Yeah.
There was no way. They didn't have traditional boat landings.
Yep.
Nate, you were pretty nervous about this one. At least visually, you look nervous about this one going into it. How did it go? How do you feel?
Well, I mean, I feel like I lucked out. We only were there 2 of the 5 days. And then didn't have to in the woods, and I got all the footage that I
Yep.
needed. So that was, I think, probably the part that I was looking forward to the least, because that's not something that I've done before. And like even with everything, I was like mentally preparing myself to just be
I
on
love
day
that.
3.
I love pooping in the woods. That's another podcast. But
You wiped your ass with a sock. Like,
Yeah.
that's not surprising.
Did you do that while we were on this trip?
no, I couldn't.
Because I touched like 1 or 2 of your socks.
Oh, no, they're fine.
Oh, okay.
Those were good
Oh my
socks.
gosh, dude, that reminds me. So when I was elk hunting, I'm sidetracking, but when I was elk hunting last week, one of the guys I was with, super awesome, funny guy, we're in camp, and he goes, if you find a Kuyu merino face mask up on the hill, do not pick it up.
Oh, man.
He had to sacrifice some equipment
Yeah.
for the cause.
Yep.
That's brutal,
Yep.
man.
We did have toilet paper,
But
though.
you don't want to
We
go
did.
around without wiping, though. It gets itchy. It gets,
Dangerous.
Yeah.
It's actually, that's not
It's
good for
very
you.
uncomfortable. Anyway, but okay. So otherwise, it went pretty
Is that your
well.
last
But I mean,
call?
Would you say it was
otherwise-
fun?
Yeah, I mean, otherwise it's a ton of fun. I love camping. I mean, as you all know, I mean, I'm not a hunter by any stretch of the imagination, but a lot of when I go out in
Yet.
nature with my camera, but I mean, I go out in nature and I do shoot things. It's just with a camera, right? I love doing nature photography and stuff like that, and it employs a lot of the same concepts as hunting. It's the patience and it's the tranquility and it's the experience of the unknown and like the Lewis and Clark element to this. I think it sounds like was unique to this kind of thing where people go to their same spot year after year and little changes. You know the area, you know where the deer is most likely to be and all that kind of stuff. And this was the opposite of that. I mean, like there were some nice moments on the boat where we were just kind of cruising. I mean, you were half asleep at one point,
Yeah,
just
yep.
laying there. Like,
Oh
it
yeah,
was-
Eric did fall asleep a couple times.
Yep.
yeah, he got a crap night's sleep the night before, so he was making up for it while things were dying down. And then you had that ginormous tree that had fallen, and it created that, you called it the,
Oh my gosh, it looked like the portal into Stranger Things.
the Stranger Things
Yeah.
portal.
That was insane.
It
that
was a
root
huge
system.
tree. And, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it was beautiful.
It looked
And
like it
so-
would eat you up. It also looked like when Sigourney Weaver's like trying to fight a way to get from it going inside the alien in the movie Alien. It looked like when the alien opens up and it's about
Oh,
to eat people. That's
sure.
what that tree looked like.
Yep.
It's insane.
Yeah. So all in all, I mean, it was a wild experience, and it was like if we could have gotten one more day out of it, that probably would have been ideal. It would have
Yeah.
been cool to
Yeah.
see more, but
Yep.
I feel like we really hurricaned our way through the thing, and God, I mean, we had a 21-hour
Great
day.
Good way to
it.
describe
It
it.
kind of just spin around a lot.
And got home at 3 a.m. and I slept all day yesterday. Like I got up, made breakfast, went back to bed, woke up, and it was 6:30 in the evening. Got up, had dinner, went back to bed, and now I'm here. I did very little yesterday.
I don't blame you, man. I
Yep.
felt very similar.
That
Yep.
sounds glorious. My little angels had me up at about 6. I did take down a monster about 2 p.m. because I was
Needing it.
going to bed at, I think I got to bed closer to 2, actually. But yeah, getting up,
Yeah.
2 to 6 wasn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
Something you said reminded me of. I'm gonna make my last call the quintessential car reference because I gotta
Okay.
end on that. Something you said reminded me of a thing that they say about rally driving though. So there's road racing, which you go on a track and you race the track over and over and over and over and over and over and over many laps. And then there's rally racing where you essentially have stages and you go from one point to another, and then you'll caravan over to the next rally stage and you'll go from one point to another. So they say that and I'm probably going to screw this up now on the spot, but in road racing, you take the same turn 1,000 times. In rally driving, you take 1,000 turns one time. So, like Nate was saying, this was the kind of hunting where you see 1,000 spots one time. You don't
Yeah.
see one spot 1,000 times. And that was pretty neat floating along. We'd see some of these campgrounds and we'd think
Yep.
to ourselves, like, that looks like a super cool place to
Yeah.
camp. We'd be going by because our mission was to go somewhere else. In fact, we weren't even in the right county to hunt for our doe tags yet. but like that looks like a super cool spot, or you'd float along and you wouldn't be seeing any waterfowl, and then you would float along a little bit further and there's 3 geese, and then you'd float along a little bit further and there's ducks flying everywhere, but a bald eagle is flying all over the place and scaring them off, and then, we just saw 1,000 things one time, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
So
Definitely.
there's my last call.
Man, here's my last call. The outboard's pretty dinged up. The boat is not watertight.
No.
We knocked a few things down.
Still floats, though.
It would still float.
Point that out.
We knocked a few things down. Had an absolute blast. It will not be the last time I see that river.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just see it
Agreed.
in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. All right, Nate, you kicked us off on last calls. Eric.
Clean it up.
Yeah, you're the closer.
Man.
That's why we call you the finisher.
Yeah. Jeez. It's big shoes to fill. I don't know. The cool thing is with hunting is it's about experiences, right? Like there's a million different things you can do and there's no really right or wrong way to do it. So like if you're hunting season is super long. We're here at the end of September going into October right now. Still have a long 3 months here ahead of us. If you're looking for something cool to do that breaks up your hunting season, just to do something different, do something you've never done before, and try some uncharted waters, no pun intended. Probably want to learn from a few of our mistakes, but I think the general idea and the general concept of what we did was a pretty sweet way to spend a weekend. So definitely would be something that I'd recommend.
Yeah. Oh, Nate, since you're the one putting all the blood, sweat, and tears into it, plug the video.
Yeah.
Coming up.
So which one? There's 3 of them we're going to be releasing for this.
The main one is a good point. The main one regarding this whole story, the vlog style.
Okay,
if you
so
will.
the Podventure episode 2. Yeah. I think if memory serves, we're going to release it the 27th, close to Halloween, super close to Halloween. This episode comes out, so it's going to be probably the last thing you watch before you put on your costume. But it's going to be freaking awesome, and we're going to get in. There's going to be a wonderful 1,000-yard stare of Mark Boardman as he mentally prepares himself to end the life of the duck we had for breakfast. So watch out
Can't
for
wait to
that,
see
because
that.
I guarantee you the close-up of Mark will be in that shot, because it's freaking amazing.
The kill switch was engaged.
The kill switch, and you can see the moment where it flips on, because
Yeah.
it's just he becomes a different person. So.
Yep.
Also, I think Nate maybe has a different perspective of how pro he thinks we are at basically anything.
Oh yeah.
You saw
better.
us at our worst.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
We're still made a tasty breakfast. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We were trying to be hashtag relatable. In fact, we might have tried so hard that we became unrelatably idiotic looking.
Yep.
Yes.
Anyone can literally do this.
Yeah, quite literally. You'll see. So
Probably a lot better.
Yeah.
watch along, listen along. Let us know if you think anything about this was hashtag relatable. Golly, we're putting a pin in another podventure, just like the last one. It's kind of that. I have a little bit of a sad feeling in my
You know what
chest.
though, Jim? It's just time to go boat shopping.
Well, we have another podventure before we do anything else in boats that we got to do.
Fair enough.
And this next podventure, I am particularly interested in. So,
Yep.
all right. Look forward to that, everybody. Thank you. We'd love to hear suggestions for future podventures. Brittany, am I missing anything? Brittany says no. Still pretty pissed at you for throwing out her sandwiches. So, thank you, everybody. Happy hunting and shooting. We'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.
All right, that'll wrap it up for this episode of the Vortex Nation podcast. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Hit that subscribe button so you can always stay up to date on the latest happenings over here at the Vortex Nation podcast. You can also follow us on Instagram at Vortex Nation Podcast. Again, everybody, thanks, and happy hunting and shooting. We appreciate it. Have a good one.